Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my tribe. Today, my God, this is my mantra. I will try to stop myself, but no, I won't. Somebody stop me. Today, I have another amazing guest because all of my guests are always amazing, right? Karel, not Karol. Karel, how should I pronounce your second name? In Polish, I would say Smutny.
Yeah, in Czech it's Smutný.
Smutný.
There's a
Okay.
same thing.
Okay. So you heard that.
Hello
Karel
everyone.
is our guest. Thank you for accepting my invitation. Although I know that for you, this kind of conversation is not so real, right? You prefer face to face and more personal contacts.
Yes, I'm a face-to-face person.
But
I
you agreed.
spent whole 2021 in this very chair in front of this very camera. It was a really long year.
I'm
And I
sorry.
took most of my video calls from the woods, like right outside.
Video calls out of the woods. It sounds like a
Yes.
dream, you know? I love that.
During summer and spring, and not so good for in winter.
Yeah, but still, you can put something warm on, right? So, we already know something about you, but Karel, if somebody asks you, Karel, what do you do in your life? Your answer would be,
In your life or in my work, so two separate things.
oh, maybe it's just two sides of the same coin, right?
Okay, so what I do as a professional is I'm descaling organizations. And this is what you do to a coffee machine with this make a shit coffee. So this joke, this pun, descaling comes from the less community. And it basically, it's a pun because descale doesn't mean less of scaling. It means less of scales from the fish or from the coffee machine. But it means removing unnecessary roles and processes and things from the organization so they can focus on actually creating value. I'm in the industry of agile consulting coaching for more than 15 years, and the past 8 years I specialize in large scale product development. So I'm working with companies where a bigger number of teams collaborate towards a single product from the customer perspective. Cut.
And you live close to the forest. So, do
Yes,
you
and I
enjoy?
live a life. I live at the edge of Prague, so I have very close to the center and also very close to the woods, and also very close to the airport. So I'm like, I can go to the woods. I can go to any time, any place in the Europe. Great place to live.
Sweet spot, clear sweet spot. Okay. So, are you enjoying going out to the woods?
Especially in the middle of the woods, there is a swimming pool, like literally in the middle of the woods. It's there for more than 100 years. And it is filled from a stream, so there is a very cold water. It's like 17 degrees, 19 degrees, and I enjoy going there during summer to swim. And the only time when you can swim there when there are no people, and the only time there are no people is when it's not really very sunny. Excellent.
Excellent. Okay. So we already know a lot about you. Thank you very much for addressing all of my questions. So if the topic of large scale is so important for you, I believe interesting, something that you enjoy doing professionally, let's talk about it today. And when you say large scale product development, what do you mean? How can we recognize that, okay, this is our case, this large scale product development?
I think it is a case of majority of products. In the wild, I rarely come to a team when a single team of up to 10 people can deliver a digital product end to end with everything. Most of the time, there are multiple teams working on a product. And the $1 million question is, what is the product? And there are at least two separate views. One is, what does the customer recognize as a product? And what do you recognize as a product internally? Usually from the perspective of, we have product managers, product owners. We play this game called Scrum. It also has a product and something. And where these two views are different, that what we call internally in product is a smaller thing that what we sell to our customer a product, then we have probably multiple teams working on different things that together is the customer-centric product, but internally each of the team has their own small product. We have a mobile application. It's a product. The product owner owns the mobile application. And then we have a backend for the mobile application. There is a product owner whose product is the backend and whose customer is the mobile application. And then we have a team who is working on integration platform, and their customers are different various backends for various different. It's nuts. This is quite common. And this kind of disconnect between what we think or own or manage as a product, between what customer buys and teams work on, creates all sorts of dysfunctions and unnecessary inefficiencies in product development. And since this is so common, this is why with my clients, I'm in this kind of context like more often than not. So that's why I specialize in this area.
Thank you. So let me try to paraphrase. When we have more teams, like any number, like starting number, like I know 3, 4.
3 or more. If it's
Okay.
2, anyone can work with it. It's like one bigger team of 15 people, like 2 teams, 1 team. Doesn't really make too much of a difference. But when it's like much more than 20, then doing just Scrum with 20 people seems it's too many people. So let's split them into smaller teams and let's give each smaller team a portion of the product. And it is motivated by efficiency. If the small, I call it usually garden for that particular team is small enough, it is easier for them to learn it. It is easier for them to develop there. It is easier to manage. They can know their own little garden very well, so they can work efficiently. And this is like intuition. Of course it is. Everyone I ask, this is the first answer. Of course, we split the large product into smaller pieces, and each team give a little piece of that. And then they would talk to each other and put items to each other's backlog. So they solve and manage dependencies, and this is when all the inefficiencies start. So there is an opposing view. Let's have all the small teams own the whole product end to end, and let each team work on any part as necessary, and have a single backlog for the customer-centric product, when we can easily manage priorities. And for many people and many organizations, this sounds like this can't be real. This is impossible. It is inefficient. Everyone needs to know too many things they wouldn't ever, and let's keep it into small little gardens. So what can happen when you split it into small little gardens? It looks locally efficient. Each of the teams work locally efficiently, for sure. But if you zoom out and each team has their own place, it is never guaranteed that the global priorities from the product perspective are evenly distributed between these areas, whatever those areas are actually. I've seen teams split by architecture, I've seen teams split by applications, I've seen teams split by layers, I've seen teams split by customer journey, that each area was a step in a customer journey. It doesn't matter. Anyway, how you split it, the global priorities will very rarely evenly distribute between these areas. So there will always be teams working on super important things, and they will barely catch a breath. And at the same time, there will be other teams working on a completely useless things from the global perspective, only because there is nothing else in their particular area. And then comes the fallacy of the local efficiency. They work super efficiently in their area on a completely useless items, completely useless functionality. So it's not efficient at all from the global perspective. And this is what I see really often. And anyone who works in the so-called Spotify model, or all sorts of versions of SAFe, or is employing team topologies, which also advocates this kind of a split. And basically majority of frameworks known to humanity somehow legalizes having small teams around small areas. under all sorts of excuses, local efficiency being the most prominent. From the global perspective, there will always be teams working on a low priority items or even complete useless items, which might be as much as half of the overall capacity of the people. So it's a really inefficient globally.
Okay. So if not safe, if not so-called Spotify model that we know Spotify is not using them, right? This idea, if not those approaches, what we should do? You mentioned one source, right? One ordered or prioritized, as you wish, source of future for our product. And then all the teams are pulling in work from that place, right? And I believe that's the risk that some of the people see. If we have maybe 3 teams challenging, 4, 5, 6, 7, so many people is going to, on one hand, pull the work from the same place, and they need to communicate. They need to speak in a similar language so that it is possible, right? And at the same time, and I believe this is one of the objections that I've heard, but it means that each of the team needs a certain set of skills and knowledge. How do we do that?
Yeah. One of the knowledge is talking to each other in a large group. That's a skill that usually needs to be acquired, because if the teams are organized in those small, I call them single specialty teams.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first setup, in the traditional or usual setup, each team have their own specialty. So it might be an application or a system or a piece of domain or a function, doesn't really matter, but not the whole product, but just a piece of the product. So teams organized this way typically have limited need talking to each other extensively.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of coordination happens on some kind of PI plannings or QBRs or all sorts of events, however you call them, I don't really care, but some kind of an coordination mechanism that makes sure that the teams work like in accordance based on dependencies and anything. So it's usually taken care of by other people than the teams themselves, often. So that's one scale. Second is the common domain knowledge. Yes, single specialty teams tend to have their own language, and the overall domain knowledge is again usually unknown to the whole group, to everyone. Maybe some business analysts or user experience people or product managers may have this language, but it rarely gets accepted by the whole group. And these are not disadvantages. These are things that just need to happen in the large group. And then the second is that the teams can no longer be single specialized. So the whole group needs to be reorganized or let reorganize themselves into teams which are more end-to-end. There is a commonly used term, feature teams.
Mm-hmm.
It's a team that can get any feature on the customer-centric product and deliver it end-to-end. And this term comes from Microsoft from the 80s. So long before Scrum, long before Agile, long before all these things. And we get this term with the original meaning, a team able to deliver a feature end-to-end. However, I recently noticed that it is also used in a different meaning, more prominently by Marty Kagan, who is now, well, not now, but for a very long time, promoting product management practices. And he used this term in a very different meaning as a team owning a particular feature, which is more close to how Spotify used to be organized based on the known videos by Henrik and others, when each team had their own feature. So I try to avoid this term because I never know whether the listener knows the first meaning or the second meaning. So I use the term end-to-end, which doesn't have any proper definition, but I see that people I talk to, like from business or from companies who don't care about frameworks and terminology and all sorts of jargon, they somehow understand what it means. Team delivering, team able to touch the product anywhere end to end and deliver feature as soon as possible within a sprint instead of within a PI 3 months long period. So you need to let the people form this kind of team, but the knowledge is already there. The knowledge to touch the whole product is already there. Every person knows a piece of the product. They were just originally organized by the pieces of the product. So it's not necessarily that suddenly everyone needs to be a semi-god who knows everything, which I usually hear as an argument on trainings or meetups or conversations with clients. But we don't have this kind of people who know everything. You don't need to. You already have them. Every piece of your product is being developed by someone. The people will just reorganize in a way that people from different eras would be in a single small team, talk to each other, might not be used to it, but now they need to, and deliver the feature across all the technological layers, across all the stack and everything. And long term, the people in each team will naturally start learning about other parts of the product, not only in their original era, original specialty, but outside, because it will be more and more common to talk from user perspective, from users' needs, instead of my piece of functionality that integrates with other pieces of functionality from other teams. It will all be contained in a single team, and people will start being more and more skilled. But it's not a prerequisite to start this way.
Mm-hmm.
So the main skill need to be acquired is to talking to each other and being able to pull from a single backlog with 30, 40, 50 people. And this is at the end inefficient and like a counter argument. We can't work this way. The older way was better. Talk too long. Interrupt me, please.
I will, if you wish. I'm here to help you with that, so I'm happy to interrupt. So some time ago, I had the pleasure to have a conversation with Martin Hinshawood about DevOps. And I would love now to connect the dots because I used to work as an engineer and Scrum Master. So I was joining accountabilities in a very big company. What I've learned over those years spent there, that it's not only about talking, but some tools, practices can help a lot. Can you please tell us a little bit about that topic? If we are developing software, let's stick to that example, what kind of practices, tools can help us with this large scale product development?
Yeah. So let's start from the team structure. So if we let the team restructure around the whole product so that any team can touch ideally any part of the product, or more realistically, more than one part of the product, more than one area, it can deliver at least some of the features end to end. Then inevitably, multiple teams would be touching the same part of the architecture, same part of the code base. And previously, they were probably in the same team, a component team working on that particular application, and were in a close contact with each other every day. Now the people are from that particular component dispersed across multiple teams, but still touching the same application, same component, same system. So there needs to be two ways how to communicate with each other. One is with each other. So good practice is that they plan together. They are pulling from the single backlog at the same planning event. All the 30, 40, 50 people plan together. So they know if there are any dependencies or any places they will meet or step on each other's toes. They know that already on the planning, and they can coordinate accordingly during the upcoming sprint. They visit each other's daily scrum or whatever as they see fit. And then there is a second way. Yes.
I will interrupt you now. So if we are planning a work for, let's say, 30, 40 people, and I've seen bigger examples, does this whole process require also more focus on refinement, especially finding out dependencies, making them transparent? Because if we start talking about those potential dependencies during planning with 40 people, even good facilitation may not help with the amount of potential topics. Right?
Excellent point. Refinement is absolutely essential. Refinement is absolutely essential for Scrum, period, no matter how many people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bit sad that in the most recent version of Scrum Guide, it is not as prominent as it should be, because this is the absolutely essential part of Scrum, is the refinement, creating a common understanding between team or teams and customer needs upfront. And on refinement, you don't usually look for technical dependencies. You focus primarily on the needs, on the features, on the user journeys, user stories, and how it looks like from the outside. But since at refinement session you talk to the actual users, they might not be very interested in any technical talks. So a separate session usually take place to discuss the software design and technical design and so on. And you don't have really dependencies between teams in such a setup. I love Bas Vode's quote in Scrum: there are no dependencies, there are only opportunities for collaboration. So yes, finding them out on the planning might be too late, but on the planning that there are these opportunities for closer collaboration between two or more teams from the whole group of teams. But yes, refinement is absolutely essential for this.
You see, I'm learning. I interrupted you.
Okay, there is a second way how the teams communicate with each other, and it is communication through code. And it took me quite a while to understand what it actually means, because you can't really foresee any potential conflicts when two teams or more touch the same component from technical perspective or functional perspective of both. So they would be finding out throughout the sprint with a bit of a surprise. And there is one specific technique that facilitates this, which is called continuous integration, also known as trunk-based development. Sometimes hear people, yeah, we have continuous integration. We have a build server. It runs every night for each of our feature branch. I said, no, that's not continuous integration. It's automated build. It's a good thing. Continuous integration is that you have no feature branches who live longer than half a day. That every code is integrated to the master branch or main branch as soon as possible, so that if there is any conflict, you find out as soon as possible. Not in 5 days, not in 40 days, when you merge your feature branch with other 14 feature branches from other developers, but in half an hour. And to leverage this, there needs to be a very strong test automation. There needs to be very good build automation, obviously. There needs to be all sorts of automation that will find any problem as soon as possible. So this is a maybe even essential set of techniques that this structure of teams needs to employ to leverage this multi-team collaboration. You pull the latest code, there will be a lot of new commits from all developers in the past 30 minutes. I will rebase my own code I wrote in the last 30 minutes, and there is a conflict. So I look at the lines of the conflict, I get up my ass, I go to that person, I talk to them. We solve it now. Then we merge it, then I push, and I can continue working. And now I know that all the code works together as intended, and not waiting at the end of the sprint, Thursday evening, and hope for the best.
I love that. I remember even once that in some of the companies, we even created such rules that don't do strange things on Thursday or Fridays. Either it's done continuously and you can immediately react, or don't destroy your own weekend and weekend of others.
Yeah.
Because this is
invites for a very creative work.
This is how it works, right? Even if somebody says to people, okay, there is a conflict, I see, but it's Friday, we are stuck. Okay, let's go home. Okay, great. They will be thinking about that, right? During the weekend. They might be stressed or might be angry at each other. Why it happened? We should have done something, right? It's much better to just get things done and move forward, right?
Yes. Git commit, git push every 30 minutes. There is a lot of practices that need to be there so that this actually helps.
I have one more question. And from this consultant trainer point of view, I can imagine that you've been working with different companies, different customers. And when I listen to you, I just have in my head, okay, change the setup, change the way how you create product backlog, right? Change practices, change tools, teach people about that, show them that. How do you manage this situation when it sounds overwhelming to the customer? Like, okay, it's not great currently, current state is like not great, but now the consultant is coming and he's saying, do that, and okay, maybe we will stay with the old setup. How do you manage that?
Happened to me a few times. Yes. So it's not a list of things to do. It's not a chores.
Mhm.
And when I'm approached by a client, we first talk about the needs. Okay, you want to be agile. What does it actually mean? What kind of problems are you solving? What do you want to improve? And sometimes there is no urgency. Yeah, it could use to be better. It could use like improvements, but there's really no one who would benefit from the changes worth of all the trouble with it. And sometimes you find out after several months, sometimes you find out on the first coffee, sometimes it's something in between. I had a client who found out on the first coffee. When I talked to the product people, they were one backlog. I want that. Feature delivered in one sprint. I want that. Why don't we have that? And then you look the other way to the engineering manager who was about to split a team into two smaller ones and give each half of their original little thing. So that now they would have even littler thing to manage, and even more delays and even more inefficiencies and everything. And he was like scared that he would manage people across all the product, knowing how. And then I hired someone who promised them it would be much easier. They didn't make any real progress anyway. So yeah, it might happen. And I found out in the past 15 years that the more a stronger business urgency there is, then there a bigger willingness to make like painful changes is there. The more people support doing these changes. This kind of change is at three levels basically. One is organizational. It's not only reorganizing the teams. That's the easy part actually. That's the easy part. But the teams had their team leaders, the managers, functional managers, or all sorts of chapter leads and center of expertise and all sorts of things that are floating around. And you need to put everyone in the same pot and make the end-to-end teams out of everyone. And there is no such need for middle managerial positions. There is no need for low managerial positions. And from these people, there comes a lot of resistance. And this kind of resistance can only be dealt with, this is not a good language, but handled if there is also strong support from the top.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the benefit is the business benefit. You can really change prioritizations much more easily. You create an organization, at least on the product level, which is able to switch the priorities much more easily. So as long as there is someone who benefits from this, from the business perspective, these changes can be done, and with middle manager people can be worked. It's not that anybody's firing them. It's just their roles transition very differently. Then it's usually not that many managerial positions or roles needed. And as long as the people have something useful to do, they can. But they usually see it as a demotion. Now I'm a team member, I was a manager before. I had some kind of a power influence. Now I need to earn my influence like anyone else. All sorts of resistance come from this. And then the third layer, the technical one, is that we might need to employ a lot of technical practices, which can be done like overnight. It's a lot of work, and it needs to go hand in hand. So, yeah, I try to find someone who benefits from this, like business wise. And if there are such people, which is often the case, not every time, and there is a really big business urgency that if we don't change anything, we might not be around in 2 years, for example, then there is a willingness to do the hard part, the painful parts. Typically, like the people in the teams is the easier part.
Mhm.
Even though I hear from many coaches and scrums, but the people don't want to. They don't want to change teams. They don't want to learn new things. They don't want to. No, that's not the problem. The problem lies elsewhere.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. So I have a connection with this, typical mantra. When the real urgent, complex problem exists, there is an opportunity to act. If not, maybe you should be honest with your customers and tell them, okay, don't do it, right? Maybe this is not the right moment for you.
That is right.
This is right. Oh, thank you so much. I love inviting people that tell me I'm right. It's like, oh, yeah, that's exactly why I started my tribe. Okay, jokes aside, I feel we already covered a lot. So thank you very much, Karel, for your time, for your openness, for your commitment to that conversation. Last thing that we have to do before we say goodbye, we have to choose a hashtag.
Hashtag.
My God, hashtag for our conversation, because I started with hashtags and I keep on doing that with my guests. So, do you have any preference? What could be our hashtag?
More with less.
More with less. I love it. It's perfect. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for staying with us. If you are still here, please put hashtag more with less in the comments. If you have any questions, any suggestions, feel free to leave them too. You can find in the description how to find Karel and ask him for his expertise and advice. And having said that, once again, thank you very much, Karel, for joining me. I hope to
Thank
see
you
you
for
in the
having me.
future.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, night. I'm not sure what time is it at your side. Just enjoy your time and hope to see you in the near future. Bye.